Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Lynch. I'm the Republican State Committeewoman for the Worcester and Middlesex District, and I am the host of the Second Opinion Show. Today we have Dennis Galvin as our guest. He is a member of the Finance Committee in Westford, and we're going to learn more about the Prop 2.5 override today. So welcome, Dennis Galvin.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Congratulations, too, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yep. It's just a recent election for Republican State Committeewoman, and I made the cut.
Yes, you did.
So the first question I have is, what is the Finance Committee about, and what role does it play in town government?
Oh, good. That's a very good question. Well, the Republican Town Committee the Finance Committee is created under Massachusetts General Law. I think it's Chapter 39, Section 16. All municipalities under a certain evaluation, I think it's $1 million, have to have a finance committee. The finance committee's job is to review the town budgets, to make recommendations to the town, particularly the town meeting, and it sort of acts as an independent watchdog over the finances. And it would be the equivalent, I guess, like in the House or in Congress to the Ways and Means Committee. It kind of like watches things and keeps an eye on the executive branch.
Very important.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We have, Westford has a 9-member board. Chris Green is the chairman. Tom Laflamme is the vice chair, and I'm the clerk of the committee. So
okay, so you take notes as the clerk? Is that
we
what that
do?
means?
If there's any correspondence, generally the meetings are recorded, so there's a transcript. But if there's any sort of correspondence that's required or comes in, I generally have to review it.
Okay, great. So just for the viewers, we have a town meeting on April 27th, so mark that down in your calendar for this vote, and you'll learn more about it today. And then on May 7th, it's going to be a ballot question. So that's those 2 dates, May 7th and April 27th, for people who care about this topic and want to take a vote. So the second question I have is, did the Finance Committee participate in this year's town budget review process?
Oh, yes, we did.
I would think you would.
did. We spent most of January and February, every Thursday, on the process of reviewing the budgets, which allowed us to basically interview the town department heads, fire, police, the school department, DPW. We had very in-depth conversations with them. They presented their budget requests. We questioned them. I thought it was a very informative process, and I think we got a very good idea of what's going on in town. So we were heavily involved, and it was a very interesting experience.
Well, I mean, it's a contentious issue. As I'm driving in today, I'm seeing signs for both sides of this topic, so it'll be very interesting to see what you have to say.
It's going about 1 for 1.
yeah, I mean, well, it might be close. Can you describe the general components of the town budget?
Yes, yeah, sure. So when you talk about the town budget, it's basically a balance sheet, just like any place else. There's income, and there's revenue, and then income, and then there's expenses. So on the income side or the revenue side, we're talking about property tax revenue, which is about almost 75% of our total budget. There's what they call local revenue, which comes from the excise tax, meals and hotels tax, and then there's local aid, which is state aid, which is essentially your state income tax money coming back to help you fill in the gaps. That's about 20%, or it has been consistently 20% of our total budget. So that's the revenue side. On the liability side, you have the town budget, which there's a difference between the town and the school budget because they're distinctive under state law. Under the town, you've got the police, the fire, the DPW, the Board of Health, Council on Aging. All those are under the town side. And then you have the school budget, which is the teachers' contracts, the curriculum, all the stuff that funds the schools, the buildings. That's on their own. And then the last group of the budget, actually 2 other final groups. One is what they call enterprise accounts. There's several. These are services the town provides in which they actually take in revenue, like the ambulance the ambulance enterprise, the recreation enterprise, but the town subsidizes those to some extent. And then the last one are the capital expenditures. Those are the ones that have to do with road improvements, building improvements, the hard assets that need to be improved in the town. So that's the overall. Those are the overall topics in the town budget.
Okay, but property taxes is the largest
Yes.
amount of revenue.
Yes, it is. It's a critical revenue stream for the town. I think Westford did very well. It got like 90. I think it was $90 million came in off the property tax last year. It's been increasing by about 2-3% each year, but it makes up about 75% of the revenue. And part of the issue that we're having in this, and we'll be discussing it, is the fact that there's a certain limit to how far you can go with your property tax. If you don't have other supplements, you can be in serious trouble. You know, and we're reaching that point.
Yeah, I think so. Would you please describe the town's override proposal?
Yes, the town has issued a proposal. There's an increase. There's the desire to increase the budget from, I think it's 129 million to 134 million. Or 35 million. It's about a 5.68% increase, and that's going to try to generate. They're hopefully $6.8 billion in revenue.
Oh, million. 6.8 million.
Yeah, 6.8 million in revenue. See, I'm talking. We're not in the federal government. We're talking town government, right? So there's an old statement by Everett Dirksen. He says, "A million here, a billion there." Then you talk real money, right? So it's about 6.8 billion.
Million.
And million. And 4.6 million of that is going towards this year's deficit, an alleged deficit. The rest, the other 2 million, are going into what is called the stabilization fund, which will be parked for a couple of years to fund further expenditures down the line, which is unprecedented. Never happened before in my memory in town government, which goes back about 40 plus years.
Yeah, so this is a multi-year.
Multi-year override, yes.
How many years are we talking about here?
Counting, I think it goes 25, 26, 27, 28, about 4 years.
Something like that, okay. What factors are creating the pressure to increase the budget?
Well, there's several. The first is probably most obvious today. I think there was some bad news on the inflation. Inflation is driving much of this. Increased healthcare costs are doing this, as well as increased energy costs, which keep going up. Food prices are going up. Everything is going up. So that's hitting us. The second thing that's causing us a problem is local aid the state is backing away from local aid. As I talked about that 75, 20, 25% match, they haven't been coming forward with the matches. They haven't been keeping pace. It's been flat, like 1% for a year. And we're not able to keep the pace that we're used to be able to keep. So that's a part of it. Second and third thing is probably, I would say, employee contract negotiations, most notably the school committee, but others as well. That they all are coming in at the same time. And so those all three things basically are kind of putting the pressure on the town. It's like a perfect storm at the same time to try to, and we're trying to meet that contingency. So that's where the pressure's coming from. So
with the aid that we get back, how much do you think Westford people put into the taxes, and then what percentage do you think we get back?
Well, that's a good question. I actually took a shot at that a few years ago, and these are out-of-date figures, but I think maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, we showed that when you combine your property tax revenue with your income tax revenue, we send in a significant amount of money.
I think
it was about almost close to. It was over 100 million, I think it was, and what happens is we don't get any of the state income tax money back. So we generate a lot of income here,
right,
but we can't take advantage of it because we're stuck and restricted only to our property tax. So the less state income tax we get back, or the local aid that we get back, the less we're getting back on the money that we put into the state. Now, the ironic thing is cities and towns throughout, cities primarily in the state, are being subsidized to the tune of almost 50% of their budgets by our local aid. So our money's going to support other communities.
Yeah, that's what I think is happening, is that we're subsidizing these cities
absolutely.
that are under. So
Lawrence, I think we're subsidizing Lawrence to the tune of 65% of their budget.
Yeah. So Westford residents should realize that we are putting money into taxes, but it's going to other municipalities.
Yes.
So just so that they're aware.
And don't forget the MBTA either.
Yeah.
They're sucking that money in pretty good.
Okay. So if this override is passed, what will be the impact on the town taxpayers?
That's a good question. That's interesting question. I think the best way to answer it is I will refer to a memo that the town manager put out. She put out two memos. One was in February 12th of 2024, and the second was on February 28th, 2024. The first one, she went into, she gave the scenario for a multi-year, multi-overrides, up to $8 million. The original proposal was $8 million. Then it was whittled down by the last memo, February 28th, to about the 6.8 million. Now, what it shows is that it showed a sliding scale starting at with the baseline was a house valued at $568,000. Okay, and then it went up to 600 plus, 700 plus, all the way up to a house valuing $1 million, over $1 million. So the tax increase on the 568 was about somewhere about $500, $568, somewhere around there, and then each one went up incrementally by about $100. So it was, if it was 668, it was about 600 something. So it's about a $568 increase for your if your house is valued at 568. If your house is at $1 million, it's almost $1,000 increase right off the bat. But there's other fees in this that are important to understand. In addition to the going back to the baseline, in addition to that 568 is about a $200 fee, or a little under $200 for the debt exclusion to pay for the library. Okay, now that's going to go up each year. That's going to go up. Right now it's about maybe 150, 160. It'll be up to 2 something over the next course of the next year. It's going to increase because they defrayed the full impact of that. So that's going to go up. And then there's also the assessment on the what do you call it, the CPA, which is about $200, somewhere around that for the average. That goes along well. So in the case of the $568,000 home, when you combine everything, you're talking about $900 increase in your taxes, almost $1,000 increase. Now that's just for the 500 something. To $1 million, you're talking about a big increase. So it's a significant increase for the taxpayers in this town at a time where the pressures outside of additional taxes, the state is having serious revenue issues, so you can expect that they will be looking for some money. And with all the other concerns of inflation and energy costs, it's going to put the average taxpayer in a kind of a hard spot.
And it only goes up.
It's only going up.
I never see it come down. It's rare when that happens. If this override does not pass, what will be the impact on the services?
Okay, so now I'm referring to the first memo that was put out by town manager Chris Last. This was back in February, and she laid out what would happen if there was no override. And there's been some tweaks to it since then, so just bear that in mind. It's kind of a floating scale, but essentially, she said that there would be a loss on the town side of the budget of about 9 full-time employees. So she's talking 2 police officers, 2 firefighters, a public safety dispatcher, a couple of positions in town hall, and there's some other issues that, for example, reduction of library hours and other things like that. Those are some of the things that you're going to see on that side. The school side, they were talking about a possibility of a loss of about 47 full-time employees. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean teachers, all right? It's very important to understand that Westford is a very complex program for instructing the students. There's teachers, assistant teachers, and then there's specialists and interventionists. The hit will be on the interventionist side, primarily. There'll be some reductions in teachers. I think they were talking about 12, but primarily the hit is going to be with the interventionist program. And Dr. Chu explained to us that he's tried to consolidate that so that, like in the middle schools, there were 6 reading interventionists. He's going to reduce it to 3, and he's going to call them reading coaches or academic coaches. So he's trying to adjust to that contingency, but that's the impact. The other thing was, right now, there will be no reduction in class size. But there may be a concern over that over the long term, and there may be a concern over the long term about the advanced placement courses too. But that's the impacts that we've been reported as far as our time with the Finance Committee.
Okay. So do you think it's right for parents to be concerned? I mean, you know, I know there's the DEI director. I mean,
that will go too. That's going to go.
Yeah, a lot of parents would be happy to see that go.
If the override does not pass, that DEI curriculum position will be gone.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, these are tough times. There's some very hard choices that have to be made, and as you can see, people are very vocal about it. Just by driving around, you can see the signs.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to come down to where your priorities really are. You know, if you're on a fixed income.
Let me say this. So I worked for Research for Better Teaching for 7 years, and the educational consultant who was the director there said that really students, they just need a good teacher, pen and paper. You know, I mean, you don't need all the other things that they give these kids. It's really the teacher that's the most valuable when someone's trying to learn. And I'd like to see our education system improve and focus more on reading, writing, and arithmetic than some of these other kind of soft skill value stuff that don't even agree with all the families in town.
Yeah. Well, let me try to explain. Let me put this in a little bit of a perspective. I mean, we're all going to be concerned about certain losses of services and things like that, and of course with the increase. I see that the situation, this is personally me, not the Finance Committee, but I see the situation being driven by a lot of policies outside of the town that have impacted the town. And the question is it proper for us to pass what I consider the cost of these programs, these failed programs, onto the taxpayers and making it a permanent part of the tax base? I think we need a time there's money. The question is, people got to look for it. And whether it will fill the full gap, I don't know. But I certainly think there's money there that can really minimize the impact. It's just that there needs to be a lot of pressure put on the administrators to look for that money. You know? Right,
because it seems like they overpaid contracts, and so we really need to do some cost cutting here. Yeah,
when we did the review, we found several things that were of concern. One of them was, this is my personal view, not the Finance Committee's, but I thought that the public safety management is top heavy in this town. I thought that the way we do vendor contracts was horrendous. We do a 1-year contract, and some of these vendors were coming in at 17% increases. You know, we want to see those contracts extended out to 3 years with a fixed increase on the rates. Our fleet management has gotten out of control. We had this year, the DPW was trying to submit several vehicles for replacements. You know, these are big capital items, $65,000, $70,000 vehicles. You can't just do 3, 4 of them in 1 year. You have to incrementally replace them. That has been lost. And then one of the interesting things was that was of concern was that there were positions that were funded by federal ARPA funds that are now that the town wants to absorb onto the town budget, and that was expressly against the recommendations of our previous town manager,
right. I remember that.
Jody Ross.
I remember that.
You just don't do that.
You need to have that foresight to realize that the money's going to stop.
It's going to stop, and then you've got to pick it up.
Yeah, so not good thinking at that time.
So,
and are the schools getting less or more students? Did you look at that?
The school population is significantly reduced from what it was, say, 5 or 10 years ago. So, and it doesn't show any dramatic trend towards increasing. Mm-hmm. But in the situation of the schools, there are a couple of things that were of concern to me. And one of them was that I believe that the school committee and the superintendent overcommitted the town in the salary negotiations with the unions. They justified a certain salary scale that they used what they call the market basket towns. Well, the market basket towns, if you total up their per capita incomes, are $96,000. Westford's is $72,000, right? Yet we were still able to develop a very good educational system because everybody's coming here on a much lower scale of expenditures. Now they want to raise these up. That's a problem. And the other thing is, there's $3 million in reserve funds within the schools, and some of that money can be applied to the school operating budget. The question is, or the problem is, no one has ever taken the time to figure out how much. You'll get arguments from the school administrators that they don't want to let go of any of that money. But they did admit in questioning before not only the finance committee but the selectmen or the board of selectmen, select board, that there's money that could be turned in. They just don't have a mechanism for doing it. So those are things that we need to figure out.
Interesting. Okay. Are you satisfied that the town has done its due diligence in presenting this budget to the town?
No, I'm not. This is my personal opinion. I think the vote by the finance committee to either approve the budget, approve the override was 7-2. It was myself and one other member. And my concerns with it were, as I spoke, I have a real problem with passing this inflation and the energy costs, and they can be solved with immediate relief by just making a change in Washington. So do we want to really institutionalize these costs and pass them down, right? When they're obviously failed products of failed policy. That's the first thing. So I have a real problem about that, institutionalizing it into the property tax. I think we need to see if we can buy time through making, maybe holding back on some capital projects, maybe holding back on improving our own contracts and business. And I think also long term, we have to start looking at regionalization for certain services, because we're not going to be with a depleted local aid account coming in from Beacon Hill. We cannot maintain the services solely on the property tax unless we're prepared to drive a significant number of our people in town out of here.
Well, I mean, if they would audit the legislature, I think you might find that would be, and Diane DeZoglio, a Democrat's working on that, and she's getting pushback on that too from the legislature. So that makes me think, what are they doing with that money? I mean, didn't they just keep on going up?
Well, they're up to $925 million for emergency shelter. Where is that money coming from? I mean, I'd like to know.
Where is it going? That's what I'd like to know. I mean, I think they got enough money from the taxpayers.
Well, they did mention, and they mentioned in the last, I think it was today in the Boston Herald I was reading, one of the places that they will take the money from is for school reimbursements. So there's another loss of money that we may lose.
What actions should the town have taken to increase efficiencies?
Okay, so first of all, and I've mentioned this for over a couple of years, the public safety sector is top heavy. They can reduce some senior management positions that I think will save a lot of money and could possibly save a couple of positions that they're planning to lay off. They never lay off from the top. They always lay off from the bottom. I've seen that in my 40 years. And the bottom is where you get your service. So that's number one. Number two, I mentioned the contracts, going to long-term contracts. Managing the fleet better would be a better way of doing it. I think somebody has got to come to terms with our representation on Beacon Hill, because they're not doing the job. They're not helping us out. We're losing money. And we have got to be able to insist that we get our fair share. And unless that happens, nothing else is going to change. And then the other thing, too, is I think that I think that the school committee needs to be held accountable for the decisions it makes in negotiations with the teachers union. As I said, the teachers union per se has been settled. However, the contract negotiations with other teaching instructors is still unclear to me where it is, and the spikes are very high. And they need to be able to go in there, and they have to remember, and when we select members for the school committee, we want members that do have a concern for education, but also are mindful about what the cost is to fund that education. And I think this particular school committee has lost touch with that. Mm-hmm. You know.
Okay. Well, I think I think you gave us a good understanding of what's going on. Are there any final words you have?
I would say that the biggest thing is a change in Washington will make a significant difference on our budget here. This is one of those rare occasions where you can see the relationship between what happens in D.C. and what happens in your backyard. We're going to feel it, and we're feeling it now. And I think that's the first item that needs to be changed.
Okay, well, you have two options there.
Yes, we do.
We know who they are. So I want to thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.
It's important because, you know, I like to tell the viewers, if you're confused about a topic, you don't know what's going on, you want a second opinion, you know, you need to have an alternative view. So tune in to Second Opinion, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.